Cool. Thank you. So this next one is called Gravity of Love. I lift my eyes up to the hills. This my morning sun, where my strength comes from. I lift my eyes up to the hills. This my evening song, where my help comes from. This is the gravity of love, just as a moon follows the sun. You all around me, you're holding everything. This is the hope of every land, just as the universe expands. Your love is reaching, you're holding everything. We lift our eyes up to the hills. Where will our help come? Lord, we cry out. We lift our eyes up to the hills. Even as we run, hope is chasing us. This is the gravity of love, just as the moon follows the sun. You're all around me, you're holding everything. This is the hope of every land, just as the universe expands. Your love is reaching, you're holding I see infinite stars, one for every human heart. And with all of these signs, I know I am not alone. This is a gravity of love, just as the moon follows the sun. You're all around me, you're holding everything. This is the hope of every land, just as the universe expands. Your love is reaching, you're holding everything. This is the gravity of love, just as the moon follows the sun. You're all around me, you're holding everything. This is the hope of every land, just as the universe expands. Your love is reaching, you're holding Okay, cool. Thank you. So I just wanted to point out, you may have noticed that Jarrett's not here. He's just broken up about it. He made sure to tell me at least twice. But in his absence, we've got Taylor playing bass and also doing the sound. So give it up for Taylor once more for taking on an extra job and rocking it out. So this song, last song before the message, it's called The One. The chorus is super fun, so we hope you'll sing it with us. Let's go.
Hello, hello, hello. Happy Halloween. I'm glad you guys all got your steps in from wherever you parked to here. Gianna said Jared is not here. It takes like 7.5 people to replace him. So I just want to give some shout outs. One, to the band. We were going to have acoustic vibes today, but Gianna and Peter are leaving us and going to Denmark. And everyone else was like, we want to be there too. And so they did. So thank you to the band for making awesome music. Gianna and Peter have a show. It's their last show, stateside. It's tomorrow night in Tampa. If you go to diff.church and click on events, the information is there. You can click on it. You can buy a ticket. Do you have anything you want to say about how fabulous it's going to be? I hear it's going to be fabulous.
Oh, just kidding.
Taylor!
It's fine. Can I just talk near you? Y'all can hear me. I was in theater. All 4 years of high school. Anyway, so it's an original show. If you have seen Natalie play drums or Seth play any number of instruments, they're in a band called Guitar. They're opening up for us at Wait and See Creative Sanctuary in Seminole Heights in Tampa. Doors open at 7. Shows from 8 to 10. Some of our other friends are going to join us. We have like 7 original songs. 4 of them are brand new. If you haven't heard the music, it'll all be new. There'll be donuts. There'll be other little treats for you to snack on. It's at an art gallery. There's beautiful paintings and such. It's $15. Before you get there, it's $20 at the door. It all goes to our friends who are donating their time for free. So please, please come.
And come next week because it's Gianna and Peter's last Sunday with us. And we're going to have mini cupcakes and give them lots of love. And lots of sadness for us. But we're not going to talk about that until after they leave. We're going to be excited for them. I'm preaching to myself. So shout out to Taylor, who's running sound. Shout out to Jordan, who is running everything else. And shout out to John and Millie, who watched my 2 kids while we set up Halloween on Central this morning. And my husband was running a 10K. We didn't schedule this. There was such a thing as a calendar, and we were both like, who needs that? It'll all work out. And guess what? It did. You're here. Our booth is actually moved, okay? So last week I said we were in the 2400 block. This morning I begged them while holding a tiny 2-year-old Bam Bam with an Elsa who was just intent on vaporizing them next to me to if there was any way we could be closer, and they moved us literally right here, okay? So we are in the 2100 block. If you go around the corner, just look for the different church sign. All the volunteers have already have their information, but if you want to come hang out in the booth and pass out candy, please do. It will be so fun. And is there more announcements? I don't know. I'm not prepared. We'll just pretend that there's not. And if you need to know anything, come find me. I probably won't have the answer. Just so you know, maybe I need to let the internet know this because the internet's going to be real upset. This is a Taco Bell hot sauce packet. I'm not the literal devil, okay? Now, it is time for our very last message on the scariest thing we could possibly talk about in October, which is... Yes. We've been discussing the rise and fall of Mars Hill, which is the podcast that was put out by Christianity Today, and also, a real-life church that Mark Driscoll founded, and it lasted until 2014, and it went down in flames. And I actually think we could spend like 4 more months of Sundays talking about what happened and what went wrong and what we could learn, but it's depressing. And I want to talk about something happier for Thanksgiving, for November. Not some dumb guy who yelled at a bunch of people so much and did so many bad things that they made a podcast about him, okay? But guess what? Today, it's still Halloween. Ooh. So we get to stuff our cases with candy and reminisce about the day it all burned down. Now, I was listening to the final episodes of the podcast this week in preparation, and aside from it making me incredibly enraged, there are just 2 words that kept like clanging around in my head all week, and they are this: distance and branding. Okay? So when we ask, how did Mars Hill, how did Mark Driscoll turn into this machine that chewed up and spit out thousands of people, I think that the answer lies in those two words. And if we're going to avoid more stories of churches doing stuff like that, I think the answer lies in those two words. Now, let's talk about branding first, okay? Did you know that Mars Hill was one of the first churches ever to have an online presence? It feels weird to say something like that because I think the internet feels like it's been around forever. Like I have it in my pocket. I have it in my hot sauce packet right here. I can access it at any time, in any place, whether I'm bored or distracted or supposed to be working or just trying to hang out alone in the bathroom. Like I have the internet at all times. But actually, it hasn't been that long, okay? The first iPhone came out in 2007. The first iPod that could play video came out in 2005. Dial-up internet, that's the norm, okay? Until the early 2000s. I used to keep stickers inside those AOL CD cases that they would mail you every month. I had a collection of AOL CD cases. My parents actually paid for AOL. And they kept doing that until AOL was like, you can't anymore. This is free now for everyone. Please stop sending us money. In college, I had to take my research papers and assignments to school on a floppy disk, okay? Like, it was a requirement of my school supplies that I had a carton of floppy disks. And then a couple years later, everyone was like, what's a floppy disk? We need a USB drive. And guess what we needed this morning and couldn't find? A USB drive, because now we're on to bigger and better things. Or should I say the cloud, which maybe isn't better because you can't just record straight to the cloud. Doesn't work. When you think about the story of Mars Hill, the biggest catalyst for their explosion of growth was their online presence, which they made at a level completely unheard of up to that point. They hired a guy who was in film production for television to shoot video because they wanted to put video on the first iPod that could take video, okay? They spent actually insane amounts of money on video production. They built a production studio that rivaled and was even better than newsroom TV stations, like the big ones, not local Fox 13 or whatever it is. They did not have just a couple people recording and editing content. They had tons of people. They had a full-time employee whose job it was to create original scores for their videos, okay? It was mega. And they spent lots and lots of money. And when they started filming, per the guy they hired from the TV world, Mark looked dumb. He wore weird jeans and shell necklaces. And so they started making changes. They wanted him to look more polished, look more put together. So you can tell me, they were building a brand, okay? It worked. Here's a picture, hopefully you can see it, of Mark from 2002. Y'all remember those shirts? Yeah. Here's one from 2010-ish. What's better, right? It's much cooler, much edgier, much more expensive. The branding enabled the visuals to be, you can take him off. I don't want space up there. I don't want him judging me. The branding enabled the visuals to be engaging and consistent, and the money that they poured into creating content enabled the reach to be exponentially more than they could ever possibly hope to reach in real life, okay? They spent so much money. It was one of the biggest line items. And slowly, actually, the entire focus of everything began to be more about creating content than about helping actual people in real life. And that, too, is marketing, okay? You can tell people that they are saving souls and that the best way to reach the most souls is to spend the most money on the most expensive tech so that the most influential person can get God's most important message out to the most amount of people, and people will be convinced. They'll be excited, for a while, at least. The problem with building a brand is that branding is not about Jesus, okay? The problem with building a brand around one guy is that the one guy then becomes a celebrity with a loaded God complex. And he starts believing that he is more important and more valuable and more necessary than anyone else. And they had better listen to him and do exactly what he says, or else. The guy that they hired at the beginning, this guy from TV, he was there for years and years. He is on the podcast. He tells a story about how they went to Greece, and they were filming all of these things to like put out, and they were lugging like giant TV cameras up and down mountains and ruins, and they put in like a 12-hour day. They were doing all of this stuff, and when they were finished, they all get on the bus, and they're practically dead. Like, their legs are wobbly, they haven't eaten, they're dead. And so they pull up to this resort that is so fancy. Like, none of them have ever stayed in a resort this fancy before in their life. Every cottage had its own swimming pool. And they were like, well, that was worth it, right? Except that Mark said, this is where I get off, and he hopped off the bus. And he sent them to a hotel downtown that was apparently infested. Later during the trip, they're filming him talking about that passage in Revelation where Jesus is calling out the Ephesians for having turned their back on their first love, which is God, and then said loving power and money. And another member of the production crew, while they're filming this, turns to the first guy and is like, oh no, that verse is talking about us. When you believe the lies for so long, when you think that you're doing something that's beneficial to God for so long, when you've drank the Kool-Aid for so long, right? When you're doing this so that people can have access to the most important message that you think they'll ever hear in their life, the message of Jesus, and then something happens and you wake up and realize that the brand you've been building has not been about Jesus at all, it's heartbreaking. It's devastating. And then we arrive on the second word. Distance. Simon Sinek says, scale creates distance. I don't know who that is, probably some famous guy, but I like what he said. In other words, the bigger something gets, the more distant the leader becomes, the more unreachable. Now, I think we expect this kind of apparatus to function in the business world. Hey. I'm only saying hey because that's an amazing costume. No one thinks they can get to the CEO of Walmart and have a conversation, okay? Like, it's not gonna happen. You do not get to be friends with those people. You don't even get near them unless they specifically want you to. This is how it works. We can discuss all day whether or not that model is appropriate in the business sector, okay? But is that how it should be in church? Should we have organizations for Jesus that are so large that you actually cannot get to the pastor for any reason? And if you happen to reach them, it's for like 5 seconds where they're like, bless you, shake your hand, and then you're like, I've been touched by an angel. And the angel is deaf. And then, I'm sorry, I watched a lot of Touched by the Angel with my granny, and it did scar me for life. If you're extra lucky, they might pray for you. They might give you a short prayer. They might allow you to repent. Okay, they might allow you to repeat the sinner's prayer after them. And I think about all the churches in America that are built on this campus model where the main guy, always a guy, is projected onto screens at different locations around the city and the state and sometimes even the country, okay? They usually have live music. They usually have a pastor who's there who like does the hospital visits and the announcements and whatever. But like for the sermon, you are watching a screen of a person who is not in the building and that you will likely never get to meet, talk to, or interact with. I have so many questions. Is what one person has to say about God, even if they're especially charismatic and engaging and they can present scripture in fresh ways, is what one person has to say about God important enough that they be platformed to the extent that they become a celebrity? Should a pastor ever really become inaccessible to their congregation? And if they are, is that a church that is built on the teachings of Jesus, who spent so much time with people that his disciples were mad about it? They, like multiple times, they were like, Jesus, send these annoying people away. And Jesus was like, you go feed them. You go minister to them. You go be with them. What do you think I'm here for? Is that how it should be run? Obviously, my answer is no. But I am interested to hear your thoughts, if you have them, and I'm very excited to think about this in a small group this week. I interned at a megachurch in college when I was getting my ministry degree. It was actually a requirement of my degree, okay? You must complete an internship at a church. Technically, you could intern at any church, but regular-sized churches could not pay the students anything or house them. So there was a number of very large churches who got assigned all the interns. And I got to stay with a family from the church for free for the summer. They were not paid to house me. They did it out of the kindness of their heart and probably some pressure from the pulpit about how we need to pour into the next generation of leaders for Jesus. And I got paid $200 a week, which was for gas and food. And then I worked at the church in every department, doing all kinds of things all summer long. The pastor of that church was just not accessible to people, short of getting like handshakes or like the Jesus shoulder pat. If you were really lucky, you might get like a side hug. I got access to him a couple of times because I literally worked there. And, he seemed nice enough. I don't know. He did have a team of people with him and around him like all the time. And most of their job was to keep people away from him so that he could focus on the important stuff, which was preparation for the Sunday message and leading the church. And if anyone needed to talk to the pastor, they got directed to not the pastor. They got directed to someone else on staff. If anyone needed literally anything, they got directed to another person on staff, unless they had some special access ticket by like virtue of who they were or who they knew. And the vibe was essentially like he couldn't do his job or what God had called him to do if he was talking to people all day. Okay, maybe that's just one example. Here's another one. I once attended a conference at a megachurch in South Carolina. The church that I interned at was a megachurch, but it only had one location. The church I attended a conference at had many, many locations in South Carolina. The pastor of that church was pretty famous. Similar vibes, but much bigger organization, okay? He had actual bodyguards who walked around with him and made sure that people did not get too close, which you could be like, okay, safety's a thing, except that they had a giant security team with visible and invisible security and police officers every Sunday. He also had a special entrance in and out of the church that was a secret so that he could arrive and leave without being bothered by all those regular people that found his message so life-changing. And this may or may not be related, but not too long after that conference, he was forced to resign because a significant substance abuse problem came to light. These stories are very common, okay? Like, how is it that I, one person, can give you 2 examples in my own life without even trying that hard, okay? When churches get large, the pastors become inaccessible, and then they become untouchable. Scale creates distance. Mark had no problem with distance. It seems that a lot of leaders of these massive church machines don't have any problem with distance either. Like, they start something, they brand it. Lately, it seems the branding is like all the same. It's all the same. Like, can we make something new? Does it have to be another sequel? Do we really need the remake of Star Wars? That's a different message. They brand it, and then they give it Miracle Grow, and then they ascend to like the lofty heights of celebrity pastorate where they no longer need to associate with regular people because they're doing more important work. No one admits that usually. I mean, Mark would admit that, but no one usually admits that. But the pattern is clear. And I think that's the thing that gets me the most about this whole system and the whole giant mess of Mars Hill and everything else that has followed suit since then. It's that the consequence of platforming these kinds of people who do these kinds of things and build these kinds of organizations is that the actual gospel of Jesus is being replaced by a performance from someone who is really engaging and charismatic and even knowledgeable, but has forgotten or maybe never knew in the first place that the core of the gospel is loving real people in real life. In Revelation 3, Jesus is calling out the church at Sardis, and he says this, I know your works. You have a reputation for being alive, but you are dead. Under the guise of saving people's souls, they're crushing people's spirits. Under the assumption that getting people to say the sinner's prayer and repent is the most important thing, the actual most important things, which are being a living example of what faith looks like, bearing one another's burdens, walking with each other like Jesus walked with us, they all fall by the wayside. You can justify almost anything if you believe you're on a mission from God. And justify we have. So what if the people who attend the church never get to have a conversation with the pastor? They're being saved. That's all that matters. So what if the pastor has a secret entrance in and out of the building? He just needs to focus on the Lord's work. So what if we spend more time discussing branding than we do praying for our people? The brand is getting the message out there. Jesus told us to go into all the world. We're just using the internet and TikTok now. Jesus is so lucky to have us. So what if there's a pile of dead bodies behind the church bus? That's just the cost of doing business. We become what we tolerate. And it's nowhere more true than it is in our churches. We need a better moral imagination. We need to ask better questions. We need to be more discerning. When we ask, what happened at Mars Hill, what has happened in all of these churches that follow similar paths, I think we also need to ask, why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep gravitating as humans to leaders whose charisma far outpaces their character? Why do we keep celebrating and platforming a certain type of person who inevitably leaves destruction in their wake and then being like, I had no idea. It was a surprise. Why are we so easily influenced by a good church brand? Why do we accept that a huge distance between us and the people leading our churches is normal or acceptable or God-ordained somehow? I wish I had a satisfying answer. I don't. I wish my own faith story wasn't full of experiences like that. I wish I would have woken up and been a stronger person earlier in my life instead of waiting until I was almost 30 to finally stand up for what I believed about God and who and how people should have access to faith. The question we've been asking every Sunday is not, is it worth the fruit, but is it worth the damage that has been caused? And I really want to be no. But, reality is a lot more complicated than that. Would I even be here today without my ridiculous internship at the megachurch? I don't know. Would this exist in the way that it does if I had worked up to courage to fight the church power earlier in my life? I don't know. Maybe I would have left entirely. Y'all can come back up here. I don't want to get real preachy. I will. But we have to eat candy and be happy. Our paths as humans, as people of faith, are always full of twists and turns and beautiful moments and dark nights that seem like they will never end. The one thing I am certain of is that God is love. And wherever you find genuine love, you will also find God. Perhaps the cosmic mystery we can least comprehend is that in spite of all of this, in spite of the branding and the celebrity and the distance and the power-hungry leaders and the machine of church nonsense that is tearing up our country, in spite of all of that, there are places and moments of God's love that are still breaking through. That God's love is still showing up, that it's still thawing out frosty hearts and setting people on better paths. That in the middle of the pile of dead bodies that lies behind the church bus, Jesus is there too. Jesus, the one who understands more than anything what it's like to be run over by the church and left for dead. Jesus, who looked at the distance between God and humans and crossed it so we would know what it means to be loved. Jesus, who even in the middle of actually dying, said, "Forgive them, they don't know what they're doing." Jesus, who brings resurrection power everywhere he goes, giving it with outstretched, scarred hands to the ones who have been run over and feel like they're dead, and to the ones driving the bus who haven't figured out that they're actually the dead ones yet. Wherever Jesus goes, resurrection goes too. Healing goes too. Forgiveness goes too. We will never be so dead that life itself can't reach us. We will never be so broken that love itself can't heal us. We will never be so wounded that goodness itself can't make us whole again. That is the promise of God. That restoration is coming. That redemption is coming. That resurrection is coming. And in fact, has already started in us. We have 2 more songs. If you want to stand and sing with us, and then I will come back and give you a benediction.
Show me I can still trust you. Whoever needs to know in this room, they can still trust you. You're safe enough to trust. Yeah, you can be trusted. You're still safe enough to love, safe enough to trust. We can still trust you. We're gonna trust you. We're gonna trust you with all of our heart. We're gonna trust you. You coming in the last hour, showing all of your power. We can still trust you. Turn it around. Do it right now. Turn it around like only you can. Show us your hands. Say that you never leave. We're ready to receive. So come and rescue. To say what you're gonna do. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. Oh, I'm gonna trust you, 'cause that's who you are. Oh, I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. Oh, I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. If you haven't sang it, jump in. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. This is a declaration. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. I'm gonna talk to y'all for a second. So I don't know what you're carrying, and I don't know how long you've been carrying it, and I don't know how tired you are, and I don't know if you tell anybody about it, but God knows about it. And if there ever was a time to trust, it's right now. You're still here, which means you've been brought to this moment, come hell or high water. If it's been a long time since you've trusted God, I want you to try to open up your heart right now. Sing these words. Sing. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. No matter what's happened before. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. Even if your heart is broken. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. Even though it looks hopeless. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. Oh, please. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. He won't let you down. I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. He'll meet you where you are right now. Just trust him with all of your heart. Oh yeah, I'm gonna trust you with all of my heart. Oh. Reach out and trust with all of your heart. Trust him with all of your heart. Cool. So this last one is called Come Thou Fount. Come thou fount of every blessing. praise the mount I'm fixed upon it. Mount of God's unchanging love.
Yeah. Thanks. I was not in theater. I was homeschooled. I cannot project. I don't normally get all sappy and emotional, but apparently I am. I'm going to try not to be annoyed by it. You're carrying something. Put it down. And that sounds really simple. Just put it down. No, just put it down. Every time it comes into your mind, put it down. Every time you wake up in the middle of the night, put it down. Every time you worry about the future, put it down. Release it. If you feel like you've been run over, Jesus is in the dirt with you. And it will not always be this hard. But you have to keep going. What do we say to our kids when they fall down? Get up. And if they can't get up, we help them up. And if they're too sad or too dramatic, we pick them up. And we say, it's okay. It's just blood. It's just emotions. You'll be fine. Just let's keep going. So you keep going. This is very unrelated, but I have some candy to give out for some Halloween costume prizes. It won't always be this emotional, okay? I was looking, granted, I didn't look very hard. I looked at Five Below and Aldi, which are not known for their giant candy bars, but I was looking for a giant candy bar, and I couldn't find one. So instead, I picked up some nonsense. Some candies that I've never heard of and hopefully won't kill you. I'm going to give them out in no particular order. We're going to give 3 out. 1 to the costume that Nova liked the most. There's a beautiful butterfly sitting over here. When you walked in, Nova went, oh. She goes, Mom, did you know you could be a butterfly? And I was like, well, yes, Elsa, I knew that. So what you have won is some sour smog balls from the makers of Toxic Waste. Jack Skellington over here, full commitment to the bit. You have won a Stranger Things giant gummy waffle. And are you a fairy, Andrea? That's what I thought. I thought you had wings, and I was looking at you earlier, and I was like, wait, where did they go? You have won this because it matches your outfit. It is a box of Krispy Kreme donut-flavored jelly beans. Thank you to everyone who has dressed up. I love you all very much. If you didn't dress up and you're a Scrooge, do better next year, okay? I'm going to blame all these emotions on the fact that the hot sauce is making me cry. And Halloween on Central opens in about 20 minutes. I'm sure there's people out already. If you want to come hang out in our tent, please do. If you want to just go up and down, it's literally like 20 blocks of people. and vendors and all kinds of things. It's a wonderful time. Go before it gets like mind-blowingly hot. And I suggest you use the potty before you go. As someone who has kids, please try before you go out into the void where there are only porta potties, okay? Now, we have to get out of here. Next month, we're going to not be emotional, okay? This is my solemn lie to you. Because emotions always happen to me. Anyways, let's pray. Holy God, we confess that we don't know what we're doing. We so often think that we are right, that we are justified, that we have the answers, only to find that we have been deceived, that we've placed our trust in people and power and answers that make us feel like we're in control instead of placing our trust in you. Forgive us as we learn to forgive each other. Heal the desperate places in our souls that keep demanding absolutes. Give us the courage to keep going, even in the dark, on these winding roads, when we can only see as far as our headlights. Remind us we can make the whole trip that way. We are never alone, and that life itself will have the final word. Amen. Happy Halloween. Bye.